some guru on stage that said, just go get the deal under contract, the money will show up. That's the biggest lie and myth I ever heard in my life. Where's the money going to show up? Is it like going to rain out of clouds or, So that's why I practice and preach the money comes first. So there is no rejection. You're not asking anybody for money. You're sharing an opportunity. And if you'll allow me, Zach, before the end of the show, I'll give away my book for free, Where to Get the Money Now, that actually lays out the opportunity that you actually teach. How should you structure these deals so you can forget the fear of rejection?
Welcome back to the Perpetual Growth Podcast, the show where we explore the strategies, insights, and stories that help you to grow your business, strengthen your relationships, and elevate your life. Because growth isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you become along the way. Now, quick as before we dive in, if you get value from these conversations, please follow the show, share the episode with someone who needs it, and leave a review. It's how we keep bringing world-class guests like today's on the show. Now, if you've ever felt boxed in by banks, frustrated by lack of capital, or convinced that real estate success requires perfect credit and your own cash, today's episode is going to flip that belief on its head. Today's guest is Jay Conner, widely known as the Private Money Authority. Jay helps investors fund deals without asking for money, without banks, and without using their own cash. And he's walking proof it works. After losing all of his bank financing, Jay raised $2.15 million in just 90 days, went on to complete $118 million in transactions, rehab over 500 homes, and built a 7-figure automated business that runs on less than 10 hours a week. This conversation is about control, leverage, and freedom, not hustle for hustle's sake. So Jay, welcome to the Perpetual Growth Podcast.
Zach, thank you so much for inviting me along to come here, be on the podcast with you, talk about my favorite subject that I'm so passionate about, and that being private money. The reason I'm so excited about it is because private money, the strategy of knowing how to attract funding for your real estate deals without ever having to ask for money, has had more of an impact on our real estate investing business ever since we started in 2003 here in Eastern North Carolina. And I can't wait to share exact step-by-step actionable items that your audience can use.
Beautiful. I love that, Jay. I mean, our audience appreciates nothing more than actionable steps that guide the process. And, one of the most fundamental principles I always abide by is, success leaves clues. I want to model the people that have been there and done that, not the ones that are teaching philosophically. So love that. Now, Jay, before we dive into the actual strategies, I always like to start here because I think it tells me and our listeners a lot about how someone really thinks. What does growth mean to you right now in this season of your life?
So you blipped out on me just a little bit. I heard, what does something mean about growth? So can you say that again?
Absolutely. What does growth mean to you right now in this season of your life?
Oh, that's a great question. I can tell you what growth means to me. What growth means to me is by answering this question in this year: what new books am I going to read and what new people am I going to meet? So let's start with the people meeting. Jim Rohn is one of the people that was credited with saying your future is predicated, your difference, what are you going to experience differently, is primarily predicated on the people you meet and the books you read. So when I focus on and I think about the people that I'm going to meet, that triggers me to share this. One of the things that has had more impact on growth, personally, spiritually, business, is the people I surround myself with. And so specifically, where do I find the people? Where do I find new people that I want to surround myself with? And the best places that I have found those people, in addition to church and Christians, are mastermind groups. So Carol Joy, my wife and I, we've been in multiple mastermind groups for many, many years, going all the way back to 2009 is when we joined our first mastermind group. And it was in the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. One of his principles that he talked about in the book Think and Grow Rich was the mastermind. Well, what in the world is a mastermind? Well, a mastermind, simply put, is a group of people that come together that are like-minded, very, very important, same core values. The masterminds that I'm in and the mastermind community that I run, our core value right off the top is lead with a servant's heart. Lead with a servant's heart. It's all about sowing. It's not about reaping. There ain't no reaping until you sow first. How can you serve other people and make a difference? With a like-minded purpose. What is it that you're looking to achieve? What are you looking to do that you don't know how to do yet, or you want to get better at? So surrounding yourself with these like-minded people with a like-minded purpose has just had a huge impact for all these years. Carol, Joy, and I, we're in multiple mastermind groups now. We run our own mastermind group of elite real estate investors, and facilitating those groups and being in those groups has had just a big impact. And what are the books that you're reading, right? Recent books that have had such a huge impact personally and professionally has been Jack Canfield's The Success Principles, 65 Success Principles in that book. The first principle being the foundation of all the other success principles, and that is be 100% responsible for everything that happens in your life. And the other book that's had the biggest impact on me personally was a book that I got and read for the first time when I was 24 years old. I was in a very, very dark place during that time of my life, and I knew that I needed a big change. And so for the first time ever, I found myself in a bookstore in the self-help section, and I found this book titled The University of Success by Og Mandino. Changed my life. So that's a long answer to a short question as to, in my season of life, what am I doing to grow? The new people I'm meeting, the nurturing of existing relationships, and the books I'm reading.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. I could not agree more. Leaders are readers. I know myself, I try to consume on average about a book a week, unless I fall into the pattern of repetition. Because when I read something that is really powerful, I know I'm going to miss elements, and I want to go back, reinforce, leverage the power of repetition, soak up all that knowledge and information. Because it's one thing to have an intellectual understanding of something, but intellectual understanding doesn't actually lead to actual mastery where we can effectively implement. So there's power in repetition. Repetition is the mother of all skill. And in every single context, our life is the sum total of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So choose wisely. I've had the blessed opportunity to spend a significant amount of time with some of my superheroes and been in private masterminds and coached and consulted for people like Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, Alex Hormozi, Stu McLaren, Dan Martell, and they were such transformative individuals in my personal growth path and getting to where I am today. And if it were not for them, if it weren't for their wisdom, their guidance, their ability to help me avoid the costly mistakes that they already made so I don't have to, pour fuel on the fire and accelerate those results, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And that's the exact same thing that you get to give to your community. And what a blessing, what a gift. And I love that you also said service first. Leading with a servant's heart. So many people are of the mindset, what are you going to do for me? Well, when we lead with a give first mindset, create a give first culture, that's where real transformation begins. You started your personal education journey fairly young. And as for many people, it came from what sounds like a time, a moment of pain. And I frequently say pain is the greatest catalyst for change in the moment. but pleasure is really the only true long-term motivator. If you don't mind sharing, I'm a firm believer that vulnerability is a superpower. What was the catalyst for you? What was the challenge that you were overcoming at that stage, and how did that become, really the impetus to everything that you've created in life now?
It was very painful. Right out of college, I went to Wake Forest University, and I had this dream that I was going to run and own my own restaurant with the big band sound and have a supper club and all this kind of stuff, which is sort of odd for a 24-year-old to be thinking about that. And so I went to work for this chain of restaurants. It was called Daryl's Restaurants. They've been out of business now for many years. But anyway, my idea is I'm gonna go to work for that chain. I'm gonna get in the management program. They're gonna teach me the restaurant business, and then I'm gonna go do my own thing.
Mhm.
And in less than 90 days, I learned that I hated that industry. I mean, I hated it. It was, you got to work all the time. I mean, unless you're a silent owner, if
Yeah.
you're a hands-on operator, you got to work all the time when everybody else is working, and you got to work when everybody else is off and they're playing. And so, one of the very first, very important lessons, Zach, that I learned, and I stayed in it for 2 years. I stayed in it for 2 years. And the reason I stayed for 2 years is because my ego and my fear of what I thought other people would think about me drove me to stay because I didn't want to be viewed as a quitter. And that's a very, very powerful lesson I learned. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, life's too short. Get on with it and find what your path is that you're passionate about. But I stayed in there for 2 years, and I worked. I mean, you can be at a place of business for 100 hours. You might not can work 100 hours and be efficient, but you can be there. And I was there. And as a result, I had no personal life. I had no friends. I had no family that wanted to do anything with me. And so I turned to alcohol. It was horrible, horrible. I got drunk every night for a year to try to escape the pain of being miserable. And of course, what did that do? That made it worse.
Yeah.
You do that, you talk about physical, put aside emotional, but you put
Mhm.
aside physical depression that comes on. And so then, I'm not really sure if I was fired or I quit. I think it sort of like happened all at the same time. They made it so bad, I just had to quit.
Mhm.
And and so, it was after that 2 years that I woke up, one morning and I said, you know what? Life's got to be better than this. There's got to be a happier way. And so I moved back here to my hometown area here in Eastern North Carolina. And my mother wouldn't let me stay with her. My dad wouldn't let me stay with him. But thank goodness I had grandparents that loved me no matter what. And I'm not saying my parents didn't love me, but anyway, so I moved in with my granddaddy and my grandmother. And my granddaddy, he was my best friend, and he turned on the spiritual light in my life. And that's when I started coming back to church. That's when I started reading books on self improvement and that type of thing. And that's why at the age of 24 years old, my life turned around.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, Jay, thank you for your vulnerability. I mean, again, um, I sincerely appreciate your willingness to share those painful histories, because I think so many people are navigating the complexities of life. And the simple reality is, if we're alive today, it's not we've got problems. Problems are a sign of life. The simple reality is we just want to work toward having a better quality of problem. Not am I going to be able to make tomorrow's rent, but am I going to be, which car do I want to drive to drive to the office today if I'm heading to the office, or when do I want to take the next vacation with the friends and family? So let's level up those quality of problems. Now, for you, that's a major transition. Like you said, those are two totally different worlds. And my little brother went through a similar journey. He went to school at Washington State University, got his degree in business hospitality, thought he'd be in the hotel world. Spent, I think, maybe a year or two there, and nights and weekends, got how many hours a week. And he goes, "This is not where I thought I wanted to be." But again, those moments of pain can be a great catalyst for change when we're listening, when we're willing to make a new decision. So for you, where and when did that transition happen in the real estate world? Because the two big things that I heard from you is what you found in real estate was leverage and systemization. How do I leverage systems? How do I leverage other people's money? All in order to be able to create both time and financial freedom. So I'm not and no shade, but not the traditional American that's punching the clock 9 to 5, hoping salary, pension, whatever is covering tomorrow's expenses, which we know good and well, particularly in today's world, is not likely to happen. The only way to create real financial independence is to get our money making more money for us. Where and when did that transition happen for you? And what did that journey look like initially?
So way back in 2003, that's when Carol Joy, my wife, and I started investing in single family houses. Prior to that, after the restaurant business, I migrated over to my father's business, Wallace Connor. He just turned 92 years old, and he's in the middle of a 350 home new build development. I guess I want to be like him when I grow up.
Yeah.
At 92 years old. But anyway, for decades, he was in the mobile home business, manufactured housing, trailers, single wides, double wides. It's all the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up in around and being in an industry of helping people get affordable housing. And so that industry pretty much went away totally in the early 2000s. I knew if I ever got out of that industry, I wanted to get into single family houses. And this was way before HGTV was even dreamed about, and the sexiness of flipping houses. But the reason I was interested in it was way back in 1993, good friends of ours actually flipped a house and made $30,000 in 1993 with just doing some cosmetic work. And I was trying to make $3,000 on a single wide mobile home. And I said, hey, I like 30,000 better than 3,000. So that planted a seed in my mind 10 years early before we started. So how did we start? Well, I read some books on real estate investing and flipping and that kind of thing. And the first year in 2003, we flipped 3 houses. I was focusing all my energy and work towards doing that. But I was relying on my experience from the manufactured housing industry. Mm-hmm. And that's not the way to go. Don't start in real estate investing if you're listening to this show. You've never done it before. I mean, you need to get the education. You need to get a mentor. You need to get a coach. You need to go work with people that's already been down this road. But anyway, from 2003, how did I get into this arena of private money and funding for real estate deals without relying on institutional money or hard money or any of that? Well, from 2003 until January of 2009, what did I do? I did all I knew to do. I relied on local banks and mortgage companies to fund my real estate deals, single family houses. But everything changed, didn't it? Everything changed in January 2009 for me. I called up my banker. His name was Steve. I called up Steve, sitting right here at this desk. We actually still have landlines with handsets attached to them. Can you believe, here in Eastern North Carolina? But I called up Steve, and I had 2 houses under contract, Zach, to invest in, to purchase. And Steve had already funded a bunch of deals for me for the previous 6 years. And I called up Steve. I told him about these two houses. They represented over $100,000 in potential profit on those two deals. And I learned over the telephone right away that my line of credit had been closed with no notice to me whatsoever. And I said to Steve, Steve, what in the world are you talking about? I've made my payments on time for 6 years. I got a great credit score. We've got a great business relationship and history. Why is my line of credit closed? And Steve said, well, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, but you just gave me a financial crisis. I don't have a way to fund these two deals. So I hung up the phone, Zach. I sat right here for a moment, and I asked myself a very important, powerful question. And this question that I want to share with you and your audience, this question and the answer to this question will help fix any problem you got going on. I don't care if it's health, relationships, financial, career, it don't matter. Here's the question I asked myself. I said, Jay, it's who, not how. I said, who do you know that can help fix your problem? And by the way, these people running around saying every problem's an opportunity, I want to throw up. I did not have an opportunity. I had a problem. Now, did the problem become an opportunity? Yes. But at that moment in time, no opportunity, it's a problem. And so I asked myself that question. Who do I know that can help me fix that problem? And you know what's interesting, Zach? When I asked myself that question, and the power's in asking the right questions so you can get the right answers, I immediately thought of a good friend, Jeff Blankenship. He was living in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time, and he was investing in single-family houses. We knew each other from church and a cappella gospel singing events and that kind of thing. So I called up Jeff. I told him what had just happened with my banker. And Jeff said, well, Jay, welcome to the club. I said, well, I'm not sure I want to be a member of that club, but what club are you talking about? He said, that's the club of being shut down by your bank and losing your line of credit. He said, my bank shut me down last week. I said, well, Jeff, how are you going to get funding for your real estate deals? He said, well, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no. He said, have you ever heard of self-directed IRAs, to where an individual, human being just like you and me, can take existing retirement funds that they're not happy with, transfer it over to a self-directed IRA company with no tax consequences, and then loan that money out to us on our real estate deals, and the interest that we pay them is tax deferred or tax free. I said, Jeff, you're talking Greek to me. I don't have a clue what you're talking about. I said, what's private money? He says, well, I'm not really sure, but there's this gentleman down in Jacksonville, Florida, by the name of Ron LeGrand. I said, who's Ron LeGrand? He says, well, I'm not really sure about that, but he tells us we can get a lot of private money really, really fast. I said, okay, let's go get it. So that's when I went to my first real estate investing conference to learn about private money, what it is, how it works, how you can raise it quickly without ever having to ask anybody for money. And so I came back home and I put my opportunity together, and guess what I did, Zach? I put on my teacher hat, which says private money teacher. So this is so important, the mindset of attracting the money without chasing, begging, selling, or persuading, but having a teacher mindset and servant's heart. So I just started sharing with people in my own network, people I go to church with, people in the Rotary Club, what my opportunity was as to how they could earn high rates of return safely and securely and invest in my deals without having a deal attached to the conversation. That's another huge point. Desperation has a smell to it. And the worst time to be raising private money is when you need it for a deal. Right? Yeah. So, I got 47 private lenders. Not one of them had ever heard of private money, private lending, self-directed IRAs. This was all new to them. And so when I offer 8%, no points, no fees, just a straight 8%, and they compare that to less than 3% in the local bank and a certificate of deposit, that's more than double, the income. And so that's what I did. So I was able to raise a little over $2 million without asking for any money, just sharing the opportunity. And then if time permits, we'll see, Zach, I call up my private lenders and I say what I put together and call the good news phone call. And I get 100% of my real estate deals funded every single time without asking for the money. So that's how it all started.
Wow. So much to unpack there. I mean, what a fantastic journey. I'm sure it did feel so fantastic at times, but there's a handful of things that really stuck out and resonated with me. I mean, yeah, I'm a firm believer that every problem is an opportunity. Every challenge is a gift. It's God, the universe, whatever your belief system, saying that now is the moment that we get to learn something new. And when challenges come our way, the first question I ask myself is, it's what's good in this? And my brain initially is usually like, nothing. but then I sit with that question for a little bit. And my second question is exactly what you said. It's who, not how. And the simple reality, the thing that I've observed from working with, thousands of business owners, coaching on stage along some of the greatest minds in the world, is that the simple reality is most people get stuck in the tyranny of how, because they are looking through the limited lens of what they know, the potentialities that they've seen and have experienced. But the truth is, when you have clarity on what you want, because fuzzy targets don't get hit, when you have clarity on what you want and you have a really strong and powerful why, why this is of the utmost importance to you, and you continue to maintain focus on those two things, how will present itself. And that how, more often than not, follows through who. And you did two really great things. You found the who, that led you to make your first investment in ongoing mentorship, education, coaching. In my belief system, I'm in complete alignment with you. I believe it's an absolute must. Nobody does it alone. Can you figure it out the hard way? Sure. But we only have so much time on this little blue ball. And I would much rather go learn from the people that have already effectively accomplished the thing that I'm wanting to accomplish. So much wisdom, so many nuggets. And that's not even diving into the actual financial aspects of how you reached out, structured these deals, learned that process, and how you're now replicating and teaching those same strategies that you've used to create your success with countless other students. Now, before we get any more into the strategies, I want to ask you shift gears for a moment and ask you a question, because I think it'll really help create clarity for our listeners. What's a belief that you once held, whether it's about money, success, real estate, that you've now completely outgrown?
Well, it came to me just through experience. And here's the belief that shifted, because the truth of the matter is there's more money than there are deals. So I thought at one time there would be a lack of funding or a shortage of funding to where, and I've always, generally speaking, had an abundance mindset. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, I had an abundance mindset. But in my head, my belief was there's more deals than there is money. There's more deals than there is funding. The opposite is true. There's more money than there are deals. I've had a problem for a long time. It's a good problem for me, but nonetheless, and that problem is I have more private money that's been offered to me than I can actually use myself. And I'm able to fix that problem because I make introductions to my mastermind members as to, where they can get funding and et cetera. But if I didn't have, other places to like introduce people to do business together, then I would not be able to fulfill, all the funding. So that's the belief shift.
Yeah.
I always knew there was money all around me. I mean, there is. There's money around everybody all the time. But until I learned how to tap into it without chasing and begging, I didn't really realize it was there. And
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and at least plant a seed as to how all this funding comes about without ever asking for it. And this is part of the leading with a servant's heart.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm talking to a regular, just, and I mean, I don't look for rich money. I look for lazy money. Well, what in the world is lazy money? Well, lazy money is just liquid investment capital and or retirement funds that regular people have that's not working. That's why it's lazy. It's not working for them as much as it could be. So what am I doing? All I'm doing is diagnosing in a simple conversation, do they have a problem that I can help solve? There it is with the servant's heart, right? So do they have a problem on having lazy money that's not giving them a really, really good return safely and securely? And if I discover they have a problem, I might be their solution. If they don't have a problem and they're making 15%, then I want them to tell me, how can I get some of that? And so it's all about keeping your focus on the other person as to how you can help them with whatever they got going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a powerful insight. Multiple, frankly. I mean, one of the things that you immediately reminded me of is the fact that there is so much money out there and available. And that, odd as this may sound, one of the first moments in time where I remember really having that breakthrough epiphany moment, it actually wasn't from the people I was surrounded by. I mean, that had a healthy component too. Don't get me wrong, but it was flying back and forth. I'm originally from Washington State, and I'd be flying on a business trip, vacation, whatever. I grew up in the northwest corner, a little town called Bellingham, Washington, 30 minutes from the Canadian border. So we'd hop from Bellingham to Seattle to where else we were going. And flying into Seattle, you're looking down at Lake Union and Lake Washington, and there's countless multi-million dollar homes, all with these massive yachts in front of them. And I'm sitting there thinking, there's more money sitting on these two lakes than most people could even imagine acquiring in a lifetime or countless lifetimes. And if I'm looking at in this one little tiny, minuscule geographic pocket, how much more money is there out there in the world? And there's so much power in that abundance mindset, because if we lead life with a fixed mindset that life is what it is, it happens, what's in front of you, you're going to be stuck in that metaphorical prison for the remainder of your life. And that's a scary place to me. I made a decision a very long time ago that I will never tolerate mediocrity. I don't care what life's challenges get thrown my way. I will find a way to rebound and come back better, faster, stronger, smarter, more intelligent in any context that I can. So that was the first place that I had that epiphany. And that real bridge for you that was so fantastic too is understanding how to now utilize it and coming from the place of service. I know when you're coming from a place of desperation, you said it, people can smell it on you. They can feel it. It is coming through our energetic field. And I mean that literally. I'm not going to get into quantum physics and all this stuff right now. But the main point is, it is literally emanating off of your body, mind, heart, and soul. So getting to a place where we are leading with service first. What's a problem I can help solve? That creates an invitation and opens the door of reciprocity where we can help each other to grow and evolve. I want to expand on that because, I'm always curious. I'm a very curious individual. Where do you see, and I think this is going to start delving into some of the strategic elements in greater detail. Where do you see most real estate investors either sabotage themselves? Where do you see the most of them sabotage themselves when it comes to funding deals?
That's a great question. Self-sabotage happens when, and we alluded to it, when they're keeping their focus on themselves instead of the focus on the other person. So let me dive into that. Mm-hmm. So number one, fear. So fear of, so there's two different kinds of fear, or two different things that make that fearful feeling happen when someone's looking to raise money for real estate deals. One is the fear of rejection. And my answer to that is, how can you be rejected if you're not asking anybody for anything?
Yes, 100%.
There is no rejection, right?
Mhm.
You know, when I'm visiting with someone, I just want to leave them with more value than I started the conversation.
Yeah.
I want them to have more knowledge than I started the conversation. And and there's no fear of losing out on a deal. There's always deals. There's always going to be deals.
Yeah.
So uh, one mindset that a lot of real estate investors have is they think they got to go get a deal under contract because they have been misinformed by somebody on stage, some guru on stage that said to just go get the deal under contract and the money will show up. That's the biggest lie and myth I ever heard in my life. Where's the money going to show up? Is it like going to rain out of clouds, or, you know? So that's why I practice and preach the money comes first. So there is no rejection. You're not asking anybody for money. You're sharing an opportunity. And if you'll allow me, Zach, before the end of the show, I'll give away my book for free,
Yeah.
Where to Get the Money Now, that actually lays out the opportunity that you actually teach. How should you structure these deals so you can forget the fear of rejection? Another fear is, well, what if I screw up the deal and I can't pay my private lender? That's a very valid question. Very valid question. How are you going to protect your private lender? Well, here's how you protect them. You give them the same security that the local bank gets. So we're not going to borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value on a single family house. I didn't say 75% of purchase price because we buy at deeply discounted prices, but 75% of the after repaired value. So it's a conservative loan to value. And you're not going to borrow unsecured money. Everything we do in this space is asset-backed security, asset-backed loans. So we're going to give that private lender a mortgage or a deed of trust. So if you don't pay them, the property does. They get the property. We're going to name the private lender as a mortgagee on the property insurance policy. So if there's a claim against that insurance policy, the check is made payable from the insurance company to your private lender and to your firm. They got to sign off on it before you get it. So, excuse me, all that's tying into protecting your private lenders. So having those correct mindsets are so important. And of course, you don't want to do private money deals until you've been educated correctly, reading my book, coming to my private money conference, or getting training from somebody else that knows about private money. And by the way, when I talk about private money, I'm not talking about hard money. A lot of real estate investors think hard money is private money, that is synonymous, and that's not true. Hard money is institutional money. Hard money is when a broker has raised private money from private investors to invest in their fund, and then they turn around and loan that money out to us real estate investors. But private money is when you're doing business, a one-on-one transaction between you and that human being that's using their investment capital and or their retirement funds, and you're giving them that mortgage or that deed of trust to collateralize the promissory note.
Yeah, awesome. That's beautiful, beautiful. So many nuggets in that short little segment. I mean, one of the big takeaways, what I hear you really saying is, private money is less about capital and it's more about giving first. Developing the relationship, building confidence, gaining clarity, and ensuring that you actually have a repeatable strategy that builds confidence, that builds certainty. Now, if you're listening right now and you're thinking, this finally makes sense, but where do I start? Now, Jay's made it incredibly easy. Jay, you mentioned a free gift for the listeners. Would you mind sharing that with the audience now?
Thank you so much, Zach. So my national best-selling book is titled Where to Get the Money Now. And the subtitle is How and Where to Get Money for Your Real Estate Deals Without Relying on Traditional Lenders. So you can get it for $20 on Amazon, but don't do that. Let me give you the book for free, just covers shipping. You can pick it up at www.jayconner.com/book. So I'm an ER, not an OR. JAYCONNER.com/book. And in addition to that, I just finished a collection that I call the Private Money Script Collection, $1 million Private Money Script Collection. People want to know what to say, how to start conversations, how to bring it up, and all that. And so I've put all that together, and it's a free PDF download for the very first script in that collection. It's called the Curiosity Opener. Back to you, Zach, having childlike curiosity. So it's called the Curiosity Opener Script to start conversations about private money. You can download that PDF for free at jayconner.com/scripts. And while you're waiting on the book in the mail, you can get that immediately.
Beautiful. Sincerely appreciate that, Jay. I mean, that's an incredible gift to our listeners. And I'll make sure that we include all of those links in the show notes so our listeners don't have to search or seek to find them anywhere. We'll make it easy on you. Now, before we wrap up today's episode, I want to highlight 3 big takeaways from this conversation with Jay. Banks are not the gatekeepers of your success. Mindset is. Jay proved that losing bank financing wasn't the end. It was the beginning of leverage, control, and scale. Second, private money flows towards certainty, not desperation. When you stop asking and start positioning, lenders lean in. Confidence attracts capital. And third, true freedom comes from systems, not hustle. Jay didn't just raise money. He built automation that allowed him to reclaim time, energy, and life. And those 3 things alone can change how you approach business. Now, Jay, I call this my legacy question. As we wrap up today, I'm eternally curious. Fast forward 20 years from now, if someone were to describe your impact, not your deals, not your numbers, what do you hope they would say you stood for?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I've come to a point in my life anymore these days to where giving back, making an impact and significance is much more important than anything else. And so the mission that I'm on is making a huge difference in other people's lives that have had a problem with banks and mortgage companies and traditional lenders being the holdback to their success. So I'm on a mission to fix the mindset problem and to share, like I have here on your show, as to that is not a problem. That is not a problem. More money than there is deals. And so what am I doing? I'm on your podcast, along with as many others as I can, to share what I have learned the hard way and to get people there a lot quicker than I did.
Yeah. No greater investment that you can make in yourself, the investment in speed, learning from others that have been there, done that, so you can avoid the costly mistakes and get the results you want sooner. Jay, I appreciate how you've taken something that most people really fear, money, and turned it into a conversation about freedom and alignment. Now, for everyone that's listening, if today's episode challenged your thinking, share it with someone who's stuck relying on banks or feeling capped by capital. Make sure you follow the show, leave us a review, and check out Jay's free resource, jayconner.com/money guide. Again, we'll have all of the links in the show notes. Jay, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Perpetual Growth Podcast today, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. To our listeners, remember, growth doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. We'll see you next time.